Now for this week's JRPG mechanic that I want to talk about, I am honestly stupidly surprised that I haven't talked about this. I was looking at my spreadsheet that I have of like every mechanic I've talked about in every episode, and I'm like, I don't know how I never mentioned this because I fucking love this mechanic, and you see this in every single Trails game, especially the modern ones. I'm not sure if it was like in the Trails games forever since the old ones, and it's something that I honestly don't notice in any other JRPG really, at least new ones, and that is the speed multiplier that they have in the Trails games. Now if you've never played a Trails game before, pretty much what they allow is at any point, any time in the game, if you press a button on your controller, it will speed up the game. And I think it changes from game to game of how fast it is, but sometimes it's like 3 times speed or 3.5 times speed, or I think even 4 times speed. I believe in Trails through Daybreak they actually have an option like you would speed it up even more. I didn't because I don't use it that much in Daybreak, but you have an option of how much you want to speed it up by, and it's just a feature where I'm like, why the fuck don't they have this in more modern JRPGs? Because I was trying to think, I'm like, is this a feature in any other JRPG? And like, at least from the ones I played, I don't think I've ever seen it. The only times you really do see it is from older JRPGs that are kind of remade or something. And so for example, like I believe the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Collection, I think they have a speed up option that you can use sometimes. But the thing that kind of sucks with a lot of these older games is, I don't think all the time, but a lot of the time for these games, these options are usually buried in menus, usually, not all the time. And so what that means is if you want to have like these mechanics such as speeding up or multiplier money, you have to go into the settings and do it. The thing I really like with the Trails games is literally just a button. I believe it used to be like L2 or something, but now it's like the touchpad. And so Trails to Daybreak, whenever I want to speed it up 4 times, press the touchpad, do whatever I need to do, press the touchpad and get out of it. And while in older Trails games, like for example, when I play Trails of Cold Steel or something, there are so many long sections of the game where you just gotta fight a fuck ton of bad guys. I would literally just keep that on. Like I would keep the speed on to the point where I think Trails into Reverie, when I went back to actually finish the game, I think I just kept it on the multiplier the entire time except for cutscenes, because when I turned it off and I tried walking around, it felt weird to me. Like the animations of just characters like starting to walk or turning around, it felt so sluggish to me. I was like, fuck, I ruined my brain. And so with Trails to Daybreak, I actually made a conscious effort to not overly spam the speed multiplier just so I don't get used to it and then feel like the actual game is too slow. Personally, the way I've been using it Trails to Daybreak is whenever there is a like, if there's like too many repetition of battle, I will use it just for a little bit. For example, if I'm like in a dungeon and I'm fighting a lot of enemies, if there's like a grunt type enemy and this is like my 6th time fighting it and I know the battle will just take like 10 seconds, I'll just speed it up for like 5 seconds, beat it, unspeed it up, and that's all. I try not to keep it on too much for the enemies too, because again, I don't want to be used to that speed, and also because in the real-time battles you do have to time your dodges and stuff, and so when you're playing it sped up, you are just making it harder for yourself. So that's one situation I use it in. The main situation I use it in is actually just to walk distances. So for example, say I fight an enemy, I kill them and I'm in a dungeon and I see there's another enemy and it's like, say it's like 10 seconds away, like in terms of distance, like I would have to walk 10 seconds away to get to them. I would literally just speed it up, walk to them in like 3 seconds, unspeed it up and fight them again. Like it's little things like that. Like I'm constantly turning it on and off and on and off throughout the game, but like the time does add up. If you have like a long ass dungeon and you're constantly turning it on and off just to walk between enemies, like you will literally save minutes of time, which will add up throughout the game. So that's the main way I use it. Another main way I use it, and I've been using this in every Trails game, is in cutscenes, which is really cool. So you can actually use it in cutscenes and speed cutscenes up. And so the way I love using it is pretty much for establishing shots. And if you don't know what that is like in cutscenes, whenever like you have a shot that kind of shows the location or something. So for example, say like you're in a hotel or something in the game, the cutscene will start. It will start at like the sky. It will slowly pan down to the hotel, slowly zoom in, and then it will cut to the character and they'll be talking. That establishing shot sometimes is like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7. It could be up to 10 seconds, and like you don't fucking need it. Like once I see it's a hotel, I'm like, I get it. I speed that shit up to like 1 second, and then we're into the actual cutscene. And so that honestly is like the main way I use it in like every single Trails game, where like when I see the establishing shot, I'm like, yep, okay, I get it, speed it up, I don't need to see it anymore. And a funny situation that I also use it in, which I kind of thought about, and I don't know how to explain this well, but I pretty much use it in quote unquote cringy cutscenes. And when I say cringy cutscenes, I don't mean it like in a bad way. Like when someone describes something as cringy these days, they think of it as like something kind of bad. What I mean in terms of cringy cutscenes is when they have like a very emotional or like heart-rendering moment. So for example, like if there's 2 characters in a Trails game and they're like opening their hearts to each other or some shit, and it's a nice moment. Like, I like it. But if I'm done reading the text and the characters are still like in that moment, I'll kind of try to speed it up, skip the dialogue, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I'll be reading everything. I'm not skipping anything. Like, I'm actually reading the dialogue. But like when they have these two characters and they're staring at each other and the scene is like 10 seconds long, I'm like, I get it. Speed it up. I don't need to see it anymore. And so I noticed myself using it for those scenes too, which are supposed to be like overly emotional. And I'm just kind of like sitting, I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm kind of cringing, not in a bad way, but like I get it. It's an emotional moment, but like I understand it. You don't have to keep holding the shot. And so I would use the speed up multiplier to get through those scenes too. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty much the situations that I use it in, at least in Tearal's games, because that's just the series that I see it in. I don't really see it in any other series. But I think this is definitely a feature that you honestly should be seeing in every single JRPG, because like, why not? There's no negative. It's an option, and when you have it, it's just so fucking nice. Especially, again, like I mentioned, for like older JRPGs that are modernized, there's a reason they add that as a feature, because if you want to get through grinding, or if you want to just travel faster, it just makes sense. That's all. With modern JRPGs, I'm talking about like anything, even something like Final Fantasy 16, like it'd be kind of weird to have it on, but like why not just give the option and like just be able to, like, if I want to just grind for some reason, even though like I don't think modern JRPGs you ever need to grind really. I don't think I've grinded like fucking forever, but if you need to grind in like Final Fantasy 16 for some reason, turning it on and just like destroying enemies would be pretty fun. Or just, again, the main hub of Final Fantasy 16, like that your main base, I forgot what it was called. Going around it honestly was kind of annoying sometimes, because it's really fucking big. If I want to get to like that downstairs garden area or the upstairs auditorium, like it legitimately took me, I think I timed it once, I can't remember what the time was, but it was something like near a minute to get from one end to another. And I'm like, if I could speed this bitch up by like half at least, that'd be so nice. And these multipliers are usually like 3-4 times, and so like being able to get to the other end of the base in like 15 seconds would be very nice. And so yeah, the speed feature has just been essential for me in the Tearal's games, and if they could add this to other modern JRPGs too, that'd be nice, because options are always nice. But yeah, that was the JRPG mechanic that I think is dope.